Hello, this is Stuart with Zesty.io, and today we're excited to show you our new Schema Builder interface. The view we're in right now is the default view from the Schema Builder, so as I click into it, I land into my model creation view. As you can see here, we have three different areas when you create a model. There's going to be the model type that you can select, some description information about that model, and some parent and settings information. So over here in step one, there's now a wizard which can kind of walk you through which model you'll need for the type of content you're going to be working with. It asks you some questions here. So if this content needs a public web page and needs a URL, I can select yes. And since I have multiple entries selected, it's pre-selected for me the single page model, since that's the most appropriate model type for that content. For today's purposes, we're going to create a headless data model to demonstrate some of the new features that we have. So here in San Diego, we have some great coffee roasters, and I'd like to go ahead and create a set of data that I'm going to have an API endpoint for that can list for me all the roasters we have in San Diego. So my model name I'm going to call roasters. One of the new features that models have is descriptions. You can now provide a description for your content editors, which will give them context into the type of content and data this model is expecting, or guidelines around that data going into the model. So for instance, I'm going to denote that this model is for local San Diego coffee roasters. Then on step 3 here, I can determine whether or not this model is parented anything. Parenting a model will affect two things. It will, one, affect the admin interface of how it displays inside the content editor view, as well as the default subpath of items created in that model. So I want this set of data to show underneath the home page within the content editor view. So I'm going to select home page. I can also determine if this model is listed, which affects programmatic parsley calls and templating. And I want to leave that as yes, since I want that to be available to me. Go to create this new model. Once this model has been generated, I'll be in the model editing view. Here on our left-hand side is our model navigation. So there's a list of all the models we've created, as well as a way to get back to creating a new model if we need to. I can also filter my list. So for instance, I can go down to the home page, or I can go to my new roasters model, which I'll jump back to. And then here in the middle is my field editing area. So I can generate new fields, and then once I've created a field, I'll be able to see a list of them here. And on my right-hand side is this model's information as well as settings. So as you can see, I can see the label and the reference name I gave it, the type of data set I picked, and as well as the various effects that has on it. One important thing to note here is this is the unique ID generated for this model. This is what's used within the API to access that data, and some hot links to jump around. I also have some settings for this model, so I can come back here, and if I want to alter any of these, I can. So for instance, roasters is a little unspecific. I'm going to make sure it's very clear. This is coffee roasters. And I can edit my description or reparent it if I needed to. But I'll leave it as is. So I'm going to save that model. And then, if for some reason I needed to delete this model, which would be a permanent action, making this content no longer available, I could do so here. This is a very, detrimental action, and therefore, it's kind of well hidden, as well as really make sure that it's something you want to do. So let's hold off on that. Let's go ahead and jump over to field creation. So I can select the field type that I'd like here. I'm going to go ahead and select a text field since I'd like to capture the business name of this coffee roaster. So I'm going to go ahead and call this business name. And once again, as you can see, as I enter in a display label, it's going to pre-fill that reference name. And once again, I can also edit that independently if I'd like to. So since every coffee roaster that we're going to have listed has to have a business name, we're going to make this a required field, meaning you can't create this content item unless a business name has been provided. We'll also leave this checked of show this value in the listing table. So models that have multiple entries get a listing view that shows all the item entries in that view. When this is checked, that means this field's value will be shown in that listing table. And then a new feature here is that fields can both have tooltips and descriptions. Tooltips are hidden, and it requires a content editor to interact with an icon to see it. So this is good for secondary information. Descriptions are always present. So they're shown below the field and are great for providing guidelines or instructions around the content being entered into this field. So let me go ahead and add this business name. Great. So now that I have this new field here, I want to go ahead and add some content for this model. So I can use my hot link here to jump over to the content editing view. And it jumps me directly into creating a new item view. So one of our preferred roasters in San Diego is Dark Horse. Let's go ahead and add them. Once I've added them, I can go ahead and create a new item, which will then take me to the editing view of that item. And like we said before, inside of a listing view, you will see when that is checked to display in listed view here. So from this view, I can also jump back to editing that schema. So now that I've set up this model and I have some fields available to me and I've added some data, I can go ahead and check out my Instant API. When I click on this, I now get a JSON feed of that model, as you can see here, and the items added to it.